Welcome to the operating systems class. So last class we were talking about clustered systems, followed by real-time systems, followed by uh, handheld systems. So this is what we were talking about in the last class. So in today's class, we will look into the aspect where we will be talking or extending the same concept of real-time systems. So the other name where a real-time system we were mentioning, it is one of a thing which comes under embedded systems. Embedded systems. And second thing, it is a new form where we are going to call here as a firmware. So firmware, we have a software layer, then we have a hardware layer. Between that, we will be having this firmware, and this firmware, it is going to be part of a real-time system. So where exactly the firmware or where exactly the real-time operating system is working, it will be in the applications of scientific, applications of image processing, and especially in the form of industrial control applications. So how many types of real-time systems are there? There are two aspects. One, it is called as soft real-time operating systems. Another, it is called as hard real-time operating systems. When we are going to call it as hard real-time systems, it is going to take into consideration the memory factor, the previous concepts of multi-programming and time-sharing operating systems. And when we are going to talk about a software real-time systems, then it is going to confine to an industry application, and especially it is going to be in form of robotics, etc. So when it is in form of a real-time system, there are two aspects which are going to be considered. One, we will be calling it as targets, and second one, we are going to call it as deadlines. So targets are given, and those targets has to be met by the machine in real time. So that is where the we call here as a deadline. So we talk about a coffee shop advertisement, that is where people are telling that a coffee shop lends 100 ml of coffee. So that is the target. When a button is pressed, only 100 ml of coffee has to be dispensed into the coffee cup. And similarly, the target was to dispense the coffee, and the deadline was it has to do it in some 10 milliseconds or 10 seconds, like that. So that is where a soft real-time system is going to work. When a soft real-time system is going to work, the program what it is going to be written will be the real-time operating system, and it is going to be burnt in a read-only memory chip. Hence, it is going to call it as programmable read-only memory. So that is what we were telling in our last class. Next, we discussed about the household applications, and in this household applications, the basically will be the low capacity central processing units. So low capacity central processing units will be held with this handheld systems. One best example we were telling what it is the POS machine, the POS machine, the ATM machine. So where we can scratch, and then we are going to swipe the debit card to transmit or remit our money from one account to another. So at the petrol bunks, in the shopping malls, so we use this POS machines to remit that. So it is one of an example of a handheld system. And second one, two live examples we were telling in, especially in a household applications, the electricity people, they visit the house, take the meter reading, and the device what they were holding, we will be calling it as a personal digital assistant. Via that, they are going to generate the report or a bill to us and give. Similarly, the conductor in a bus, maybe he is going to use the personal digital assistant, and he is going to use that equipment device, and he is going to punch the tickets. So those are some of the general applications where the handheld systems are coming into scenario. So there are some limitations. One, it is having low memory, it is having slow process, and the screen is not as big as even our mobile. So these are some of the limitations what are happening in a handheld systems. So after that, we were telling that there is some migration of concepts in operating system. So the earlier thing, the begin of an operating system was from first generation to second generation. So at that time, the first evaluation computers was the IBM mainframes, and the IBM people, then they started working on building the mini computers. After the mini computers, now they are replaced with the desktop and laptop computers, and after that, now they are replaced with the handheld computers. So that is how the migration has been transformed from one generation to another generation. Similarly, the operating system process management, that is, it can be a batch processing, nor it can be a multi-processor operating system, nor it can be some time sharing operating system, or a multi-processor operating system, or a multi-user operating system, so or a clustered operating system. So all these examples, they are going to have some migration over time. So these are the examples: the network operating system, the clustered operating system, so the multi-user operating system. So these are all varied with time from one generation to another generation. So the operating system initially was batch processing. Over time, it replaced it to spooling. Over time, it replaced it to multi-programming. Over time, it replaced it to time sharing, followed by distributed operating system, network operating system. So multi-processor operating system with asymmetric processing and symmetric processing. So loosely coupled, tightly coupled. In this way, from generation to generation, the migration of an operating system has been moved from other things. So here the table is going to show the same picture right from 1950 to 2000, how the migration has been taken place. So that is what we have talked about the previous topic. So there we completed these elements in the previous topic. And after this, for today's class, we will especially focus on the new aspect, that is operating system services. So this operating system services, we are going to focus here. So before we enter into an operating system services, now how people are going to communicate with an operating system. So the only thing where people are going to communicate is with the command line interface, nor they are going to communicate with a graphical user interface. So if we have the DOS prompt, MS-DOS prompt, then we are going to call it as command line interpreter. And at that time, we have to type each and every command manually with our own hands. But if we are going to use the GUI, so Windows operating system is a GUI, the Android operating system is a GUI, but the basic versions of Microsoft Disk operating system, MS-DOS, or the basic Unix operating system, those are all just monochrome, and people, there is no user interface. People has to type all the commands, each and every command manually. So there we are going to call it as command line interface. But whereas graphical user interface, it is just drag and drop, putting the right clicking the menu, selecting the items. So no need to type any command. The command itself is going to be processed in a GUI method. So that is where the operating system services are going to be upgraded. So now, how these operating system services are upgraded, or how the command line interpreter is going to take care. One, it is going to take care via kernel, and another it is going to take care via shell. So now I have introduced two terms. First term I am going to call it as command line interface. Second term I am going to call it as graphical user interface. Third, now I am going to put the word called as kernel, and fourth I am going to put the word called as shell. So now let us look each and every word into detail. So now when we are going to call the operating system, where it is going to reside. So where it is going to reside, we are going to call that one as kernel. So operating system functionalities, those are available in a location, and that location we are going to call as kernel. So this location we are going to call it as kernel. So where the operating system is going to live, where the operating system memory is allocated, so that location we are going to call it as kernel. So what will be the operating system functionalities? So we are talking right from one week. One, we call it as process management. Second, we call it as memory management. Third, we call it as file management. Fourth, we call it as IO management. Fifth, we are going to call it as protection and security. In this way, n number of functionalities of an operating system are there, and all the functionalities, the core functionalities, the core team of an operating system, it is going to be part of a kernel. So in one line, a kernel is a place where operating system is going to have a memory, where operating system is going to function. So that position we are going to call it as kernel. After kernel, we have the basic hardware devices. So what will be the hardware devices? The first thing we are going to call it as central processing unit. What is central processing unit? Central processing unit is made up of arithmetic logic unit, and central processing unit is made up of control unit. Next, it is going to have the memory. So what is memory? Memory can be a primary memory, memory can be a secondary memory. So what is primary memory? Again, primary memory can be a random access memory, primary memory can be a read-only memory. What is secondary memory? Secondary memory can be the hard disk. What is hard disk? The things what we are going to use in D drive, E drive, F drive, nor we are going to have a external storage. So the external storage, again, it is going to be part as memory. So it can be CD, it can be a DVD, not it can be the pen drive, what we are going to use. So those are all coming into the second aspect called as memory. Along with that, what are the remaining hardware? So the remaining hardware, they can be with the I/O components. It can be the keyboard, it can be the mouse, it can be the monitor, that is the LCD monitor, and it is going to be this printer, followed by the scanner, etc. So these are all elements we are going to call here as the hardware devices. So the first thing we call kernel, where operating system is having location to rise, location to live. Then it is with its functionalities, process management, memory management, file management, I/O management, and protection and security. Then it is going to have the overlaying over the hardware devices. It can be CPU, it can be I/O cycles, it can be memory, etc. Now, this kernel, it is going to support two aspects. One, it is going to support system programming. It is going to support system programming. Then it is going to support application programming. So with the functionalities of operating system, the kernel is going to support one, system programming. Second, it is going to support the application programming. Now, what is system programming? System programming can be compilers. System programming can be assemblers. They can be interpreters, nor it can be linkers. It can be loaders. So system programming, it is a set of components which are inbuilt with the operating system, and they are also being a part of a kernel. They can be compiler, they can be assembler, they can be interpreter, they can be linker, they can be loader. So all these, they are going to be the properties of the system programming, which are going to be part of the kernel. Then we are going to have the applications. So user applications. So what will be the user applications? It can be some text editor, nor it can be some MS Office applications. So all these, nor it can be the browser. So this is where the applications is going to be concerned. Now finally, what is shell? So shell is nothing but the user interface. Shell is nothing but the user interface, and via the user interface, people are able to use the operating system functionalities. People are using the operating system services. So via the interface, so the position where people are going to have touch and feel, look and feel. So how I am able to access my mobile phone? I am just touching on it. So the position where we are going to touch, we are going to call it as user interface. How I am able to see my apps on my mobile? So I'm able to see the apps on my mobile. Then I'm going to have look and feel. So the place where the operating system is going to provide user touch and feel, look and feel. So those elements we are going to call here them as user interfaces. So user interface is an interface where user has an extreme position to directly contact with the operating system. So via the shell, user is going to put the request to the kernels, and kernel it can use its system software and application software, and system it is going to use its functionalities, and it is going to use the hardware devices to make its function.
మొత్తం ఖర్చు పడి 20 లక్షలు పెట్టారనుకో
మొత్తం అన్ని పోగా 50 లక్షలు మిగిలిన
20 వచ్చేస్తాయి మనం 20 పెట్టిన.
So via this operating system we are having this kernel, nor we are going to have this shell. So we were mentioning that kernel is a location where he is going to have a user interface. So he is going to have a user interface, the location where the user is having an interface with the operating system. So that position we are going to call it as shell, and where the operating system is going to where the operating system is going to reside. So that is the position where we are going to call it as kernel, and where the CPU, where the memory, and where the IO are there. So those elements we are going to say they are the hardware components. So users puts his request to shell, next it is going to come to kernel, and kernel it is going to put the request to the hardware, and hardware replies it, and then it is going to reply to the user interface. So that is how a channel is going to be built between the user. Now, how are user interfaces there? One, we are going to have the Microsoft Disk Operating System. One, we are going to call it, another one we are going to call it as a POSIX. So POSIX is nothing but the portable operating system for Unix interface. Portable operating system Unix interface. So Unix, people don't call it as Unix, but the core term is POSIX. So that is portable operating system interface. So where we are going to call here as an Unix operating system. And second one, we are going to use this Microsoft DOS, that is Microsoft Disk Operating System. So these two, now people has to type the commands manually. So where the user he is going to type his commands manually, so that position we are going to call here as shell. That position we are going to call it as shell. And where the operating system is going to stay, so that position we are going to call it as kernel. Now this shell is going to be replaced with graphical user interface. Now the shell where the people are instead of Microsoft Disk Operating System, it is replaced with Windows. Yes, it is replaced with Windows. It is replaced with XP, Windows 7, Windows 8, and Windows 10, and Windows NT. And Unix, it is now replaced with Linux. It is now replaced with Debian. So all these elements, they are going to be the part of a graphical user interface. So people are going to have, instead of typing with our own hands, typing the keyboard, remembering the commands, etc., it is very difficult. Just drag and drop, plug and play. So in this way, user having a quite good interaction with the system, and the position where people are having an interaction position. So that position we are emphasizing it as a shell. So that is what we have to take away for this operating system services. So operating system services, they are going to provide an environment for execution of programs for the programs and users. So users, they need to interact with the operating system. People wants to have their job to be executed by the operating system. So for that we need some set of services. The set of services, they are going to be offered with two ways. One, we call it as system software. It can be compiler, it can be interpreter, linker, loader. And if it is going to be an application software, it can be web browser, it can be a notepad, it can be paintbrush, it can be MS Office applications. So those are all the generic applications. So those two has to be provided as a service to the user, and his programs has to be executed. For that operating system we call here as an OS services. So how are these services granted? The services are going to be granted with two options. If it is a monochrome version, if it is a older version, then people are going to have the command line interpreters. If people are now accustomed to Debian operating system, Android operating system, so Linux operating system or Windows 7, XP and 10, etc. So these are all going to fall under the graphical user interface. Now, what will be the operating system services? So what will be the operating system services? The very first service, operating system sees that the program gets executed. Whenever I'm going to type a program called as swap.c and I want to use it in GCC compiler, so or if I'm going to use some DOS box and if I'm going to execute my program, the program has to be executed. So how it is going to be executed? So whenever I'm going to type a program, so first of all, that program is brought into random access memory. That means it is going to have some memory allocation. It is going to have some memory allocation. So assume memory it is between 0 to 100 MB. So your program is going to have program here. So the program is going to have some part in a memory. So program is going to come and sit into the memory. How it is going to say? You are going to call the word as loading of the program. Now you are going to say Alt F5, Control F5. So that is where you are going to give some commands. So giving that commands, we are going to say running of a program. We are going to execute the program. We are going to compile the program and we are going to make some debugging operations. So whether it is going to have a normal termination, whether if it is going to have an abnormal termination. So you people, you have an opportunity to learn Java, and in Java, if the abnormalities rises, then we are going to use exception handling. So in exception handling, we will see that there is no runtime error comes. If some runtime occurs may rise, then what we are going to do is we are going to use a try block, we are going to use throwback, we are going to use catch block, then we are going to use predefined exceptions, user defined exceptions. So divide by zero error, out of array, out of bound error. So in this way, we will see that program will not hang, the laptop will not struck. There is no need to reboot our laptop again. Some normal restart should happen. That means instead of abnormal termination, we will prefer the things to go in a normal way. So that is where one of a primitive of this program execution. Second thing, we were telling that the IO operations. So the memory, it has to be allocated to the thing, and thereby we are going to say the program is going to save as some swap.c. So swap.c, now it has become a file. When it is going to be brought into the memory, it has become a process. Now it is going to have some allocation. So now file.c is assumed as a file, and it is going to save in the hard disk. So it is going to be done via this IO operation. So the second thing, how these are going to be processed. These are going to be processed with kernels, and these are going to be processed with shells. I just had enough discussion on kernel and shell, so I'm not repeating just now. Next, we will be having this file management. So of course, the file has been there. Now, what are the operations we can do over a file? So the basic operations, you have worked in C language, and you have worked on file operations. So you say open the file, close the file. Then we are going to say we call append the file, and while appending we can say there is a read mode, there is a write mode. So in this way we are going to make some file operations over the file. So along with this file, so we are going to have some directory structure. We will be having some directory structure. Again, directory can be created. So here I am underlining here, directory can be created, directory can be deleted, and whatever files are there in a respective directory, so those we are going to search it, and those elements are going to be listed out in ascending order, in descending order, according to date of creation, according to the storage space. So in this way we are going to search for a file, and we are navigating the file in form of a list. So we will be having some grant and revoke permissions. So read permission, write permission, read write permission. So in this way we are having some permissions over a file. So all these aspects, they are going to be part of the content. So the first primitive we were talking about process. So we had the program to be brought into memory and it is seen that executed without abnormal terminologies. Second, we have the IO devices which has been there to make the read, write, append operations, and then the file is going to be stored. So here we have this file management system, and file, when it is going to be stored, it has some stored in some directory, seed in some directory, and then the directory operations, it can be opening of a directory or it can be creating a new directory, creating a folder. So we are not going to call here as directories. In Windows operating system, we will be calling it as folder. So we create a folder, and in the folder we will search for some files, we will delete the folder, then we can hide the folder. So hiding is nothing but we are going to say managing the permissions. So all those operations, they are going to be one of the services provided by the things. Next one, we are going to have some interesting word called as communication. So interesting word here called as communication. So communication is nothing but there is a source and there is a destination. Between the source to destination, data has to be exchanged. So assume my location is a source and your location is a destination. So what I am going to speak, you are able to hear it. So we had some media, and that media channel we are going to call here as a communication media. So how is this communication media, or how is this network established? So network established, it can be via a local area network, it can be via a metropolitan area network, it can be via the wide area network, and they are going to be propagated with some internet, or they are going to be propagated with a intranet. So it can be propagated with internet, nor they are going to be propagated with a intranet. So communication is going to be established. So we are not using any internet, and if we are going to use within the society, within the labs, within the organization, then we are going to call it as intranet. Second, if we are going to use our network, and that is the best example as live. So that is my position, I am going to call it as one, that is client side, and your position called as server side or a peer-to-peer side. If it is assumed like that, now the basic communication between you and me will be only the internet. So it can be a local area network, it can be a metropolitan area network, and it can be a wide area network. So using this topology, we were able to exchange information between our computers, between our mobiles, our laptops, etc. So this is where a communication is going to be set up. Now, as part of an operating system, this concept is going to be implemented in two words. One word, we are going to call it as socket programming. We will be done with socket programming, and this socket programming falls under IPC. We will call here as inter-process communication. Inter-process communication. So inter-process communication via the socket programming is going to be done with two primitives. The first primitive, we are be calling it as message passing. Second primitive, we will be calling as pipelining. So using the two primitives, the inter-process communication, using the concepts of sockets, it is able to exchange information. So whatever words I am going to speak, those are now brought to the network. They are converted as packets, and these packets, they are put into a socket and transmitted to the tower, the network tower. From that network tower, again, you are able to get those packets unpacked as a socket and release it to the physical layer, network layer, and then they are able to give you the data. So that is how the exchange of information is going to done. You will have a good learning in computer networks with TCP/IP and OSI model. So with the 7 layers transmitting model, with 5 layers transmitting model. So physical layer, data link layer, network layer, transport layer, application layer, session layer, and presentation layer. So in this way, the media is going to focus the communication over a network with these 5 terms. So you will have enough introduction in computer networks. So that is another issue. So as far as operating system is going to be concerned, operating system is going to take 2 words. One we are going to call it as message passing. Another we are going to call it as pipelining. So when we are going to call it as pipelining, what is happened is it is going to be between peer to peer. It is going to be between a peer to peer. So this is a client architecture and there is a server architecture, and there is only one party at each end. There is only one party at each end, and process 1 will communicate with process 2, and in between them, whatever channel they made, whatever connection they made, so between them, there is only one-to-one correspondence. There is only one-to-one correspondence. So we don't have multiple process to able to share the memory, or multiple process are not going to participate. Then we are going to call here as pipelining concept. So in pipelining concept, we have one source and one destination. So there is no interference of multiple processes at a time. So that is one of a primitive of pipelining. Next one we are going to call it as message passing. Next one we are going to call here as message processing. So in message processing, we will have shared memory. In message processing, we will be having the shared memory. So the definition I am telling, shared memory, the word itself is telling memory is there, and that memory can be shared by multiple process. That memory can be shared by multiple process. That means if I am going to have job 1 here, if I am going to have job 2 here, and job 3 here, so job 1 can put its data, job 2 can use the same data which is given in a shared memory. Similarly, job 3 can use the same data which is given in a shared memory. Got it? So the common variables, what are there? Those common variables, they are global access, and that global access can be defined or used by multiple jobs at a time. So that is where this shared memory is going to come into picture. So the first concept we were telling that pipelining. So in pipelining, there are only 2 participating entities, one source and one destination. Next, we were telling you about message passing, and in this message passing, it is going to use the shared memory concept. Shared memory in sense, whatever content which is deployed in the shared memory, whatever content it is deployed in the shared memory, they can be served to each and every process. They can be common to each and every process. So such a content, we are going to call it as a shared memory. So the best example I can tell that we have created a Google Classroom, and we have deployed all our learning resources into the Google Classroom. So the position where the Google Classroom is there, it is a shared memory. So all the 180 members, all the 180 students, they can go and pick up the learning material what they want according to their choice. And at 1040, I can use unit 1. At the same 1040, you can also use the same unit 1. So that means multiple jobs are going to use the same memory at the same interval. So I am passing some protocol, I am going to pass some message, and thereby accessing the shared access, that is the global content what is there, and that is, it is put in a public place. As it is put in a public place, obviously everyone can use the same content. So as it is called as a public place, so people here, they are going to use the word called as shared memory. So when it is going to be a peer-to-peer, when it is going to be a pipeline, then we will say it is a private variables. So when we talk about object-oriented programming concepts, we have public members and we have private members. So when we define it as a public members, so the variable which is defined as a public, it can be used within the class and between the classes, all its data members and member functions. But if we are defining it as a private variable, what happens is The scope is going to restrict only to the base class. The scope, you are not going to get any external references to other classes. Even if we do inheritance, even if we do polymorphism, the private variables, their scope is restricted only to that location. So it can't move beyond. So that is where this pipelining is going to support. And if we are going to use a shared memory, that means it is going to support the public members. So the public members are the public variables in a class. They can be used by base class, they can be used by derived class, they can be used by friend functions. So in this way, if it is a common job, it is in shared memory and it can be pulled up with everyone. So operating system supports both the value, both the thing, and both the thing it is going to process with the inter-process communication, and inter-process communication it is going to use the techniques of socket programming, and socket programming it is taking up message passing, and it is going to taking up pipelining as a communication media. So the communication media can be within Ethernet, it can be a bus topology, ring topology, and star topology, and it is going to use a local area network, metropolitan area network, wide area network, backbone with some internet or backbone with intranet to exchange information between multiple users at a time. So that is all regarding the communication. Next comes the error detection and correction codes, and this error detection and correction codes, it is going to be part of parity bits. That is going to be part of parity bit. So when we look into parity bit, it can be an even parity or it can be some odd parity. So if I am going to have 4 digits, if I am going to have some 4 digits, 1, 0, 0, 1. Now if I am going to have a even parity, if I am discussing about even parity, then the answer is make even number of ones. So the answer is 0. If I am going to use the same word for odd parity, if I am using the same scenario for odd parity, as per the definition of odd parity, we will make that the number of ones in the scenario should be odd. So we have 2 ones, which is an even number. Now we are going to add one more one. Now it is going to support the odd parity. So error detection and correction codes, they are going to have the even parity and they are going to have the odd parity as one of a primitive, so that errors will not rise from source end to destination and when a communication is going to happen. So communication can be within the process, between the process, within the system, between the system, within the components, between the components. That means it can be between CPU, it can be between memory, and it can be between IO hardware. Similarly, it sees that it debugs all the user programs. While executing the user programs, it sees that it is error prone. That means no error is going to happen. So it is emphasizing the concept of parity bit, that is parity bit generation, parity bit checker. So where the even parity is raised, where the odd parity is raised, if any bit positions change, they will verify the even parity, they will verify the odd parity. So if it doesn't match, then people sees that, okay, error has occurred. If there is no change in the data, by verifying the odd even parity, okay, this is okay, my even parity is same, so no, there is no error. So in this way, using the backbone, the Hamming distance, using the backbone of even parity and odd parity, so people are going to use this error detection system as one of a most primitive of an operating system. That is, while exchanging user information, while executing the user jobs. So this scenario is going to work because the data, what it is going to be brought to the system will be totally a digital. It is going to process into digital. So when processing into digital, it is putting the things in registers, and registers, they are going to, along with the register, they are going to have this even parity and odd parity, and that is how they are going to implement. So in today's class, we concluded the previous topic, that is embedded systems, and we concluded the migration of operating system. Then we talked about operating system services. So operating system services, we were mentioning it works with command line interpreter and it works with graphical user interfaces, and operating system where it is going to live, we call it as kernel, and where the people can interact with the operating system, we call it as shell. Shell example, C shell, corn shell, Bourne shell. So that comes under a Unix operating system, C shell, corn shell, and Bourne shell. So the Unix name, original name, we are going to call it as portable operating system interface. So these are all the monochrome versions where people are going to text with keyboard, and they are replaced with Windows 7, 8, and 10. These are all the graphical user interfaces, Android, etc. So these are all the graphical user interfaces, and they are using the hardware. So that is what we discussed. Then we talked about file system. We talked about enough discussion on communication, that is using message passing and pipelining, and we have just talked about error detection. Anyhow, I'll be again discussing this error detection and correction codes in the tomorrow's class. So this is all for today. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, we have 154
Thank you, sir.
students. Yes, thank you. So now I'm stopping the recording.